Welcome back to She Takes on the World TV. I'm your host, Natalie McNeil, and this is the Kwik Habits series with world-renowned memory and brain performance expert, Jim Kwik. Let's dive into today's habits. Here we are in your office,
Yes.
and I know that you get so much done in a week, in a month, in a year. I know that more entrepreneurs want to be able to boost their productivity.
Big time.
Yes. So tell me about how you stay so productive, how you get so much done.
Okay. So first of all, the environment is very important. And so part of being a good learner or being a good producer is you want to anchor certain things. Just like when we're talking about the bedroom, you know, that's exclusive for sleep. I don't do work in that. So everything gets anchored. They did a study where they took students and they submerged them underwater with oxygen masks and they had them memorize like a list of words. And then they took them out and they tested them out in open air, and then they put them back under the water and tested them. And in which environment do you think that they remember more? Guess.
The water.
And the water, yeah. It's interesting because they remembered more in the place where they actually learned it in the first place, because the environment actually gets anchored to the information. And I teach people who want to be high performers, let's say you have to prepare for a meeting or take a test. Maybe you can't study in that place where you have to perform, but what you can do is you could actually bring that environment in with you. One of the fastest ways to your memory, the senses, is actually through your sense of smell, olfactory. And what I recommend people do if they want a little brain hack is actually wearing a certain cologne or perfume or lip balm or essential oil while you're studying a very specific subject. I do this with actors all the time. I get to work with, you see a photo there with like Hugh Jackman and Jennifer Lawrence and Jean-Luc Picard and Gandalf and Game of Thrones.
How did that happen?
Yeah, so, but a lot of times I'll help actors memorize their lines. And one of the ways of doing it in terms of a simple brain hack is to introduce these special fragrances, like unique fragrances, because it's like Pavlov's dog. You bring it back and then just like in the environment, you remember it. And so let's say you're chewing a very specific flavored gum while you're studying it, and then you use that same gum while you need to perform or you need to take that test or give that meeting, for example.
For me, it's lemon verbena.
Is it really?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, there's certain actually fragrances actually stimulate, like citrus smells actually stimulate your brain, which is absolutely amazing. But I obviously love superheroes, as we were talking about before. But my work environment, this room I use exclusively just for work. I don't use it just like when you have, if you watch like Netflix and you have a specific iPad, don't do it on your laptop where you also write. Right, because you want to, all that gets anchored to specific devices. So here is where, when I'm in my office, I'm here to write and to get things done, and I don't use it for anything else. So that's the first thing. And when I want to be productive here, I have my to-do list, right? We talked about my to-do list, my not-to-do list, my to-feel list. I mean, I have a vision board, but I also have like a gratitude board, you know, so as I reach certain, accomplishments, what I want to be, do, have, share with the world, I'll move them over to a gratitude board. So I can
What's on your gratitude board right now?
So these are the things that I'm most grateful for, because I think that there's, and mostly it has to do with my family, my friends, because that's the thing that I value the most. I think there's actually 4 keys for what I call a quick brain like mindset. If you want a most like successful mindset, I think you need 4 G's. Number 1, you want a growth mindset, right? Because it's a whole work, in Carol Dweck's work about mindset, which is a great book. I highly recommend it now that everyone knows how to read a little bit faster. And because it's the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. So you know that things aren't fixed like your shoe size, that your potential could really be tapped. The second G I would recommend besides a growth mindset is grit. And grit, I mean, I feel like, think about it like all your successes, all the things that you've been able to accomplish. There's always these trials, right? These adversaries that you had to go through, the adversity that you go through, the difficulties. And so you have to develop grit. One of the reasons why we're talking about my cold shower, the other thing I do on a regular basis is I go to cryotherapy. And this is the benefit of cold, but it gets really cold. I walk into a chamber, basically in a robe, and it goes down to negative 240 degrees. I mean, it is ice below ice cold, right? And you're in there for 2 to 3 minutes. And I do it, number 1, to help me with the inflammation, right? But the other reason I do it is because the last half minute and like 30 seconds is very difficult. It's safe, but it's difficult. And I feel like that's when you exercise your grit, your persistence, because I think like grit is a muscle. And if you're people, if you want, here's the thing. If you do the easy things all the time, then life is hard. But if you do the hard things, then life is easy.
I love that.
And you really want to build your grit. And one of the things by building your grit is you put yourself in situations where you're stretching, and you're playing and you're dancing at the outer limits of your limitations, if you will, at the edge of your limitations. And that's where it feels uncomfortable. But I feel like some of the most successful people that I get to work with, and people that you work with and know, is that they get comfortable being uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Because that's the thing, because playing it safe in today's day and age is too risky, right? And so you want to be uncomfortable and push your grit. The third thing I would say, besides growth and grit for a good mindset, a great mindset, or a genius mindset, would be giving. Because, why are we here? Why are we growing and going through this grit? So we have more to give back, right? And everything in nature grows or dies, and everything in nature gives back or it's eliminated, in this ecosystem. So knowing that's not just about me, it's about we, right? Like for me, billions of dollars doesn't really inspire me, but billions of brains, that really gets me excited. And finally, the fourth G, outside of growth, outside of grit, outside of giving, is going to gratitude. Because I feel like that if you can't appreciate the things that you already have, then you're not going to be rewarded with more. And I also believe when it comes to gratitude, it's the highest level of emotion, that if you want to feel really, truly wealthy, write down and put on your gratitude board, all the things that you have that money can't buy, which is, think about that. And so I think gratitude is very important. So when I'm in my office, I'm in productivity mode, and I start with my to-do list. So I have a to-do list like everybody else, and it could be dozens or hundreds of things on your to-do list. What I'm looking to isolate right there are the 3 things that I need to accomplish today, personally and professionally, that will make it a win. 3 things that help me to really thrive, 3 personal things. And they don't have to be really, really big things, but 3 things personal, 3 things business-wise. And when I'm looking at the business ones, I talked about a lot of my personal things, in terms of movement and just having, green juice or anything like that. For the business things, I really are looking for the things that are going to move the needle the most in my business. Because some things on my to-do list, if I got this one thing done, there's like a domino effect. It takes care of the other things, if you will. But the challenge is, I find, is people procrastinate. All right. And so what for activating your quick brain to be able to take action like a superhero does, because learning in life it's not a spectator sport, right? You can't sit on the bench. There are a couple of quick tips on how to overcome procrastination. Okay, let's hear them. Right, so, I know this is a problem for so many people right now. You have something that's been sitting there that you need to do, but you are just putting it off. And that's a challenge. And that is decreasing the quality of life. And, as the saying goes, I never saw discipline as something that took away from my freedom. For me, if you can't get yourself to do something, it's like a prison. So I always thought that discipline really gave you the freedom that you want. Because if you can't get yourself to do something you need to do, then you're in jail. Right? That's the opposite of being free. I love the way that you frame that. Right. And I really hope people take a minute to absorb that. And that's why I love what this whole series that you're doing and talking about, morning routines and rituals and habits, because it takes discipline to be able to do that. But first we make our habits, and then our habits make us. And that's why it's so important to have morning and then, evening routines, because in the middle of the day, you might not be able to control that, right? You have team and you have variable, you have firefighting, clients and everything else. But the best, and I understand that everyone can make excuses, like, you have the kids, you have the college, you have everything else, but maybe you could wake up 30 minutes earlier to get this stuff done. And you don't have to do everything that everybody talks about, but do something that's conscious, right? That makes things better. Because there's nothing better than ending the day and somebody asks you how your day was, and you're like, wow, I crushed it today. Yeah. Like I really won, right? So part of it has productivity hacks. Right. And so the thing that you want to do is overcome procrastination. So I would give you a couple of quick tips and I would have people think about the thing that they're putting off, right? What are you putting off that you need to do that will make your life better, but it's just too painful, right? And I would say, number one, the best way of overcoming procrastination is just to procrastinate about it, right? you put off putting off things. If you're such a good procrastinator, then just put off procrastinating, right? But all kidding aside, what I would say is, first thing I would do is break things down. Because a lot of people, they don't do this thing because it's this amorphous big elephant or big monster. And what I would say that makes it more digestible is breaking things down into tasks and getting some kind of momentum, right? So when you have a big project, you don't have to put the whole project on there. Just break it down to the first thing you need to do. And this is actually, and I'm borrowing this from the science of tiny habits out of Stanford University by Dr. B.J. Fogg. Tiny habits is like, if you're procrastinating flossing your teeth, for example, he's like, don't worry about flossing all your teeth. Just floss one tooth, like one tooth. And does anyone just floss one tooth? No, of course not. They end up doing a second, a third, and so on. And that's breaking things down into tiny habits. It's like if I want to get people reading, like we were talking about earlier, making it a habit for reading 20 minutes. Don't worry about reading for 20 minutes. Just read one word in a book, and then you read the second one, right? So you break it down. That's the first advice. The second thing I would say is to start with your why. Right, one of my favorite books in business is Start With Why by Simon Sinek, and I do believe there's a success formula that it goes from your head to your heart to your hands, meaning that I could visualize things in my head and think about things and set goals in my mind and affirm things in my head, but if I'm not acting with my hands, nothing is happening. And so what I would say is what's usually missing is the second H, which is the heart, right? The emotion, the energy of motion. I had a martial arts instructor teach me years ago that you can't steer a parked car. Right, you need some fuel, and so the emotion gives you the fuel to be able to move things forward. And I would tap into why you're doing things, because reasons reap rewards. Reasons reap rewards, and if you come up with enough reasons, you'll get the action to do it. And the third thing I would say, in order to be able to overcome procrastination, to really smash it, smash it like the Hulk, if you will, is to start somewhere. Just start somewhere, anywhere. And this employs actually a rule in psychology called the Zeigarnik Effect. The Zeigarnik Effect. Basically, this psychiatrist or psychologist in Europe was noticing that when she was out at the cafe, that the waitstaff was never writing down her orders at all. And have you ever had a waiter or waitress like that? You go to dinner and they take like 5 or 6.
When I waitress, that was me.
Right, it's amazing. Yeah. And I was as a kid, I was wondering, how do they do that? Because I remember, for me, it was like a big belief change when I knew it was really possible. And what they're executing if they don't have an actual strategy for it, like one of the memory techniques we teach, is the Zeigarnik Effect. And basically, what she found when she was researching it is they would hold that order in their mind, but as soon as they delivered it, the order would disappear. Right, because they got closure. And the Zeigarnik Effect is basically saying your brain doesn't like open loops. Open loops meaning you start something but don't finish it, right? It doesn't like that dissonance, and so it needs closure, right? Like a kiss goodnight kind of thing. And so what was happening here is that they were remembering the orders and they would hold on to it until it actually was delivered. And then that's the Zeigarnik Effect. And so the idea here is start something and you'll have this impulse to finish it. And, until it's done, right? But you start somewhere as opposed to not starting anything. And then the last tip I would give people to overcome procrastination, so you could hit your top 3 things today, is to be kind to yourself. To be kind to yourself. Because you would think that people intuitively beat themselves up over procrastinating. I didn't get my workout in. I didn't get to meditate today. I didn't get to make my green juice, my smoothie, or all those things that they do. And they think that by being hard on themselves, they're more likely to change in the future. And we actually find in the research done on self-compassion is the opposite is true. It's actually the opposite that's true, that being kind to yourself, being compassionate with yourself, saying that, I'm only human and it's okay, that I missed my workout today, means that you're more likely to do it moving forward. So be kind. You're
more likely to do it. Okay. So if somebody, though, is continuing to procrastinate and every day they're saying, well,
right.
I'm just going to be kind to myself and it's okay that I didn't get it done today, but then that goes on for like a few days in a row.
Well, then there's a different problem. Then I would go back to the other parts of it in terms of breaking things down, tapping into your why. Because I do believe if the why is big enough, we can always find the how, the time to do the how.
100% agree. You are the best brain coach an entrepreneur could ask for. Thank you so much for your time, and I have so much to incorporate into my own business and life from getting to work with you, and I know that our viewers are going to have so much that they can take action on as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you for everybody.